All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the webinar, 6 Ways to Go Green and Keep It Clean While Preventing Rust. So I'm Crystal Moore, I'm your project manager, and I'm the one whose voice you're going to hear for the next 30 minutes. And my co-host today is Chris. Hi, Chris. He is one of our eradicators of rust, and he's the one who's going to be manning that question box that we just practiced. So anytime throughout this webinar, if you have a question for us, feel free to type it in that question box. Thanks, Chris. So for some of you who are on this webinar, you might be very familiar with Armor. But for others, you might need a little introduction or reintroduction to Armor. So at Armor, while we manufacture rust prevention and rust removal products, we know that our purpose is to protect your brand, your parts, and your reputation. And how we do it? Well, that's with our secret weapon, VCI, which is Vapor Corrosion Inhibiting Nanotechnology. You'll hear me refer to it as VCI, you might hear me refer to it as rust prevention, or maybe the whole long name, Vapor Corrosion Inhibiting Nanotechnology. We also have a rust remover product, and that's Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath. That's located in Home Depot and AutoZone and Canadian Tire, 9,000 retail locations throughout the United States. But what you might find most interesting is that second bullet point from the bottom, over 90% of Fortune 500 companies, well, they rely on Armor. So here's how we're going to break the webinar down today. The first thing that we're going to talk about are what are the 6 ways Armor goes green? Or really what I mean by that are what are the 6 ways you go green by using Armor products? Then we're going to spend some time talking about why bio-based and compostable plastics are not the answer right now. And then last, we're going to talk about what do we mean when we say clean, safe, and easy rust prevention. So before we get too far into it, I want to stop and I want to say this first. Armor is not claiming to have the silver bullet to save the environment. There is a long way to go for that, for all of us. But what we are saying is that we want to be part of the solution, and we are working as hard as being outstanding stewards to our beautiful earth as anything else we do. However, there is so much information out there right now about the environment, it can be confusing. So we wanted to clear a few things up, and we wanted to do that by talking about the 6 ways that Armor goes green. So here's the first one. It's the easiest one. You know this, and I know this. Armor products are recyclable, and recycling is one of the best ways to positively impact our environment and the human race. Recycling helps to reduce pollution caused by waste. It reduces the need for raw materials to be used. So when you're finished using Armor film or paper, we want you to recycle it. Because such as Armor wrap, that can save 17 mature trees, 7,000 gallons of water, 3 cubic yards of landfill space, 2 barrels of oil, and the energy equivalent of 165 gallons of gasoline. So if you want more information on how to recycle Armor products, then feel free just to type recycling in the box to Chris. He'll connect you with your local area technical sales manager to discuss your options for recycling Armor products. All right, the second way that Armor goes green is what we call recycled content is money well spent. So what do I mean when I say recycled content? Well, in layman terms, it's the stuff that makes up the product that you're buying. Well, it's made from recycled material. So an interesting fact about Armor is by 2020, so this year, we expect to have a minimum of 30% post-consumer recycled content in all Armor polyfills. So you might be asking yourself, all right, what is post-consumer recycled content? And the easiest way that I can describe this to you is by first talking about pre-consumer recycled content. So the way that I like to think of pre-consumer recycled content is the waste left over in a plant. So I think of it like this. I'm baking a batch of cookies and I roll that dough out and I cut out the different shapes of cookies. Then when I take that remaining dough and I smush it back together and I re-roll it out, that's pre-consumer recycled content. Well, what's more interesting is post-consumer recycled content. Post-consumer recycled content is the bigger deal. It happens through our manufacturing partners that bring back the poly that's been out in the world and that's been used. And with the advances in technology, we can clean and we can reuse that material to provide you with VCI that contains post-consumer content. But here's the cool part. You might want to jot this down. With the advances in technology, the price is not increased. So you get the same quality material and you do something good for the environment by using products that have post-consumer recycled content. All right, the third way that Armor goes green, or that you get to go green by using Armor products, is source reduction. So what do I mean when I say the term source reduction? Well, in layman terms, source reduction means you get the same result from your product, but you use less to make it. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me compare this to something that we all have in our houses. It's a light bulb. So I want you to think in your mind about the old traditional light bulb. If you're looking at your screen, it's that left side, it's that incandescent bulb. With that bulb, you get light, but it gives off 90% of its energy as heat, not light. Now with the improvements in technology, out comes LED light bulbs. So look at the right-hand side of your screen now. Energy. LED bulbs use 80% less energy than traditional bulbs. So you get light, you just get your light much more efficiently. And we at Armor, well, we did that with film. In 2005, Armor was the first manufacturer to use an innovative engineering to bring multi-layer or co-extruded films to the market. And we call that Defender. All right, so take a look at the left-hand side of your screen again. On the left-hand side, that's your traditional VCI or your monofilm. And the VCI, for lack of a better word, well, it's just everywhere in the film, which means about 70% of the VCI, well, it isn't even used. Now look at the right-hand side of your screen. With the improvements in technology, we use Defender or create Defender film. 25 less material is used, and there's for a few different reasons. First, we put the VCI only where you need it. So look at those 3 layers. That one that's closest to the metal, well, that's the only layer that has VCI in it. And then we've added in the middle a unique barrier layer. And that allows us to do the third thing, which is down gauge the film by 25 to 30%. So what do I mean by down gauge? If you're familiar with VCI, you probably hear people say the term that a Defender film is 3 mil with a 4 mil EQ. That is just a fancy way of saying with technology, we can use 3 mils of film thickness to get the same results as a 4 mil film. So this is just like the LED light bulb. We are using better technology or source reduction at its finest. So if you want some more information on, well, what is this Defender film? Just type the word Defender in that box to Chris and he will send over to you the sell sheet. All right, number 4. So far in this webinar, you might be starting to think, yeah, I know that recycling, well, I know that's good. And I know that source reduction, well, that's good. And I understand that using recycled content, that's good. But here's where things start to get a little bit trickier. And that's something we call the biodegradable fable. And I think Jacqueline McGlade, a chief scientist at the UN, she said it so well when she said this: biodegradable plastics, while they are well-intentioned, right now, they're wrong. And let me tell you why that is. So there are 3 different ways that we would say right now there is a biodegradable fable. The first is that current on the market biodegradable plastics, well, they require a high temperature and a high amount of sunlight to actually biodegrade. And these conditions in our typical landfills, well, they're just unrealistic. So that bag that you think is biodegrading in some landfill, well, it isn't. But it's trying to break down. So then you might think, well, recycle it. But because it's trying to break down, made from petrochemicals and other chemicals that are added to cause the plastic to break down. So while it's not really breaking down in that typical landfill, if you expose that to the right conditions in the manufacturing process, will make them difficult to recycle. And then last, because there's still those chemicals in there that are trying to cause that small breakage, when those plastics, they enter the ocean or they enter the environment, they threaten wildlife and organisms that consume it. So we want to say to you right now And I want to make this clear. There are bio-based films that are out on the market that are seeming to work, but those are 4 to 5 to sometimes 6 times as expensive. The ones that we are talking about is when someone comes to you and says, I have a cost-effective biodegradable plastic. Well, right now that just does not exist. All right, so number 6, we're taking it, or number 5, we're taking it back to middle school science. And that is that paper is a renewable resource. And what's a renewable resource? Well, it's in the name. It's something that this world can regenerate. So I want to pause here and pop back on the screen to say this. I think that we have all taken a ride on what I call the renewable resource train. And here's an example of it. So first, we were all going to the grocery store and we were using plastic bags. And then we heard, oh, no, stop using plastic bags, use paper bags because they're a renewable resource. And then we heard, no, it's time to shift back to those plastic bags. And that is because of this, what we said earlier in the webinar, that it is hard to know what to do to save the environment, that there's no silver bullet to save the environment. And sometimes the right thing to do, well, it does change. But what we know right now is that paper is made from wood, a natural resource, and that is renewable and that is recyclable. And paper sustainability in the US has increased due to paper making technology. We also know that over 2.5 billion trees are planted in the US each year alone. And on top of that, by 2012, over 65% of the paper that was used in the US, well, it was recovered from recycling. So using Armor paper and using Armor wrap means that you are using a renewable resource. And that's a way that you get to go green. All right, the 6th way that Armor goes green in the 6 ways Armor goes green is what we like to call Armor's green thumb. And we like to say that we aren't new to the green movement. We've always made products that were clean, safe, and easy to use. And I put them together in this fun little slide where we talk about green versus unclean. So we want you to use these different Armor products that we consider green versus using what's behind them, the old-fashioned, unclean, not great for the environment products. So let's start at the left-hand side of your screen. So the first one, and I'll hop back on here, see? The first one that you're gonna see is Dry Coat Rust Preventative Spray. So Dry Coat Rust Preventative Spray, you spray it on, it dries to the touch within 30 minutes. It doesn't leave any type of sticky, oily residue. We want you to use that instead of what's behind it, those old RP greases. Now, if you look at the middle of your screen, we're talking about that Armor wrap, that renewable resource, Armor paper. That's paper that's been impregnated with VCI. So you can take that paper, you can wrap it around your metal part and it'll prevent it from rusting. We want you to use that instead of those old, messy, horrible RP oils, rust preventative oils. And then the last one on this slide that says green versus unclean is that rust remover that I talked about in the beginning. So it's a water-based rust remover. You can see on the picture on the front of the bottle, it is so safe for you in the environment. You can stick your hands right into it. We want you to use Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bat instead of using those harsh old acids or those traditional rust removers. So a little side note or something that you might want to jot down or maybe reach out in the question box to Chris is if you're coming back from a shutdown and you have rust on some of your metal parts that were maybe left idle for a few weeks, maybe a few months, and you're looking for a way to remove rust that's clean, safe, and easy to use, just type that in the box to Chris and he'll get you connected with your technical sales team about using Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath. All right, so before we move on, I do want to mention this. At Armor, we like to call ourselves authentic, and that's a combination of the word authentic and fun. So we put together something for you called Natural Science, and that's our take on popular science. So if you are interested in receiving a physical copy of our Natural Science magazine or an electronic version of it, just type Natural Science in that question box to Chris, and he will get one sent out to you. And it's filled with fun information like these 6 ways Armor goes green, maybe some information about the types of rust. We've got the VCI usage guide, just a bunch of really cool information laid out in a really authentic way. So before we move on to talk about clean, safe, and easy, I want to visit that idea of bio-based and compostable plastics. And I want to bump this out and kind of talk about it again because I want to make sure that we fully understand why bio-based and compostable plastics are not the answer right now. But before I get into that, I want to make sure that you fully understand, well, what are bio-based and compostable plastics? You might have heard me say that and say, wait a second, I don't know what you were talking about. So bio-based and compostable plastics are made from renewable biomass sources. So think vegetable oil, think fat, think cornstarch, wood, recycled from food waste. And compostable means that they are supposed to be able to turn back into carbon, water, and bio-based sources. That's what we're talking about when we say bio-based and compostable plastic. And then I keep saying the same thing over and over, that we believe that what's currently on the market for our customers that's listed as a cost-effective bio-based or compostable plastic, well, it's not the answer right now. We all of us at Armor, we all want bio-based films. And one day we fully believe that this can be achievable in a cost-effective manner. But the industry and the typical options that are presented to you, they're just not there yet. And we're also so passionate about it because we are starting to see legislation call for a certain amount of bio-based plastics. And we want to be able to say, yes, we have those. But when we say Armor makes a bio-based and compostable film, we want to be able to mean that, and we want it to be an affordable solution. So while we think 100% it is achievable, what we can see from some just competition and other places on the market that are saying they have cost-effective bio-based and compostable plastics, well, they just aren't. And again, we talked about this earlier, start from the bottom of the screen, work your way up. Right now, what is on the market, it's really not biodegradable and compostable. And the stuff that is, that really, really, truly is, that's incredibly expensive. And then two other points that we haven't talked about is right now, the way that these films are made, this plastic is made, well, they do require a large amount of energy to produce, and they require a large amount of land to produce as well. We also know that compostable plastics, they need a high temperature to truly break down. They need that proper combination of oxygen and moisture, specific organisms. All those things together mean that they're difficult to compost. You can't put them into the traditional recycling methods. And we really lack the infrastructure for compostable plastics. And that's why at Armor, one, we were passionate about this webinar, and we are also passionate of making sure that our products meet these three standards. And this is the last thing that we're going to talk about on the webinar today, that all Armor products are clean, safe, and easy. And we wanted to break that down by what we mean for clean, safe, and easy for your people, clean, safe, and easy for the environment, and clean, safe, and easy for your facilities. So I want to start here when we talk about people, just kind of a little fun fact or interesting thing about VCI, which I think it really kind of drives home what we mean by easy to use. So a lot of people don't know this, but the idea, that start of using VCI, so using a vapor corrosion inhibiting nanotechnology and impregnating that into a carrier like paper, well, that really started around the 1930s, 1940s. And it came from this idea that we didn't want to send metal and guns overseas to the guys in World War II covered with rust preventative oils. Because when they got there, we wanted them to be able to either grab that metal or grab that gun, kind of be on their way. And we want that for your people too. Maybe a little less dramatic than wartime, but nonetheless, we want, when you can remove your metal from the packaging and remove it from VCI, that it is ready for the people in your plant and in your facility to be able to use. And that gives you a reduction in time and a reduction in labor. We also, this whole webinar can be summed up with our products are clean, safe, and easy. We want to make sure that your individuals eliminate the use of having to be around those messy oils and greases and solvent-based chemicals. We want them to be around clean products, which are water-based rust prevention infused in the packaging. So when we say clean, safe, and easy, we also mean for your facility. So we really, really drive home the point of not having to use messy rust preventative oils. RP oils are horrible for your facility. Yes, they're horrible for people and the environment, but they are horrible for your facility. And the spills of RP oils on the floor are the #1 reason safety managers want to switch from using an RP oil to protect metal to using some form of a VCI solution. So if you want to walk through, well, how do I transition from an RP oil to using some form of VCI? If you just type either VCI or transition or RP oil in that question box, Chris has got it. He will get you connected with your technical sales manager, and you can talk about, well, how do I transition from using an RP oil to using a clean, safe, and easy VCI solution? And I think the entire webinar could be summed up by what I mean when I say clean, safe, and easy for the environment. Using Armor products means that you are reducing pollution, you are reducing waste, you are reducing energy expense, and reducing the creation of raw materials. You know it's safe because Armor products are water-based, and what's easier than using VCI? And if you've heard me say VCI, 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 and you're curious, like, well, what is that VCI? I want to learn more about these products. We have lots of other great webinars. We have one called All the Dirt on VCI. That's great if you are selling VCI. We have one called 15 Reasons Why Rust Happened. It's great if you're an end user. So if you just want to dig deeper into Armor's VCI, type that to Chris in the box. He'll connect you with a link to those other Armor webinars. So at this point, what I want to do is turn it over to Chris. I'm going to open it up to some of the questions that we've seen come in on this webinar and other webinars about Armor. So go ahead and take it away, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kristen. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here today to learn about how Armor is doing our part to go green. As Kristen said, we've been doing this for quite a while. So we have a lot of different resources around the country, whether it is our technical sales managers, our rust eradicators, or connections with recycling centers. So if it's something that you have a bulk of VCI or poly or anything that you need recycled in your facility that comes from us, please reach out to us, type it in the question box here, and I'll make sure I'll get you hooked up with your regional rust eradicator, and then we can hook you up with someone that can help you safely get rid of your poly. Another thing I wanted to mention too, because I did see a question about the LED light bulb or the Defender versus the incandescent or the mono poly. Someone asked, is that a lot more expensive? The question is actually the opposite, or the answer is the opposite. It is a little bit cheaper to go with Defender. So as Kristen was saying, a 4 mil Defender is actually a 3 mil bag that performs better, and thus we can call it a 4 mil bag. So we're saving not only the environment, but we're also saving a little bit of money in your wallet as well. And if you are open to looking into, looking at our Defender versus our mono or doing some tests on your own, just let me know, and we are more than happy to send you guys out some samples. Another point I wanted to make too, from a question I saw was, why would I switch to paper when I'm already using oil and it's working fine? And I think Kristen really hit it home. Was it's ready to use, and it's safe, and it's quick. And when you add everything up versus the time and the cost of the product itself, you are going to end up saving a lot of money on the back end. So not only are you saving money, but we're also working to save the environment as well. That's really all the questions that I see. I do see that there are a couple booklet requests. I'm going to make sure that I get those sent out to you. So if you are interested in either a booklet, or if you're a golfer and you just need some extra golf balls because you're like me and you always hit it to the right, then please just type your address over there and we'll be sure to get you some Armor labeled golf balls. But I wanted to pass it back to the birthday girl, Kristen. Go ahead and take it away.
It is, and it is my birthday today. Thank you, Chris. One of the things I just wanted to add, not having to do with being clean, safe, and easy, but we just wanted to make sure that we put this on the end of all Armor webinars, especially if you are having difficulty finding hand sanitizer. Our consumer partner, which is Blaster, the makers of PB Blaster, they're the ones who distribute Metal Rescue into Home Depot and AutoZone and Canadian Tire. They have a hand sanitizer. So if you are looking to distribute hand sanitizer, if you're looking to bring it into your own organization, just type hand sanitizer in the box to Chris. He will connect you with the sales folk who will get you connected. It's just something that we're doing as a service to our customers. So, and then on this note, from myself and from Chris, we want to say a big thank you for taking time with us this morning. And when we close out the webinar, a survey pops up. I believe it's, a handful of questions. 1's the lowest score, 5's the highest score. If you could fill out that survey for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. And what we really want to hear too is content. So if there's any topic that you want to learn more about, then please just let us know in that survey. But from myself and from Chris, have a wonderful